911 operators of Reddit, what was the dumbest non-emergency you picked up? Serious. I've had so many I can't even remember most of them. Two that come to mind instantly are: 1. Toddlers whose parents give them phones to play with which aren't connected to any service. Yeah, they still work for 911, and we can't call you back on them either. Luckily the mapping system usually works pretty well to the extent that not only can I tell the address, but can often tell the officers which area of the house the calls are coming from. 2. Dude called 911 because he got off a train at the wrong stop and was broke. Honestly, it wasn't even his predicament so much as he was absolutely obnoxious about it. Even called 911 several more times after I had already told him officers were en route. Annoying that he's tying up a line for medical emergencies, but that being said, I'm going to preach a little. If you honestly think you may have an emergency but aren't sure if it qualifies for 911 use, don't worry about it and just do it. All emergency services personnel would much rather have much ado about nothing than have something terrible happen when it could have been prevented. This goes for all types of emergency situations. Also, do not underestimate fire. It grows at an unbelievable rate and seconds can be the difference between life and death. The last major fire I worked, the caller called 911 and hung up on me after giving me her address. I called her back, at which point she tells me she came home to a small fire but it's out now. I dispatched the fire department and told her fire staff are on the way just to make sure. She said okay in a tone like that's really not necessary, and we ended the call. She called back a few minutes later very upset, telling me it wasn't extinguished after all. Ended up being a 2-alarm fire, gas lines in the walls on fire from basement to attic. Fire staff said if I hadn't dispatched them when I did, the whole neighborhood would have gone up based on how woodsy and windy it was. What is the weirdest thing you had to do at someone else's house because of their culture religion? I worked for a rental car company in an Orthodox Jewish community. A customer rushed in on a Friday evening and asked to be driven home immediately because if we didn't make it to his house by sundown he would have to get out of the car and walk the rest of the way, due to the Sabbath. He used an app on his phone to tell him the exact time of sundown each day. I didn't have a driver available I just told him to go home and I'll come by his house later to grab the car. A half hour later I arrive at his house. Husband is nowhere to be found, and the following scenario ensues with his wife. My husband left the keys on our bedside table and I'm not allowed to touch them. Can you come in and grab them please? I awkwardly follow her into her bedroom and grab them from the bedside table. Can I ask one more favor? Do you mind unplugging the house for me? I then follow her into her basement and enter a room where there are literally 15 to 20 different electrical cords coming through holes in the walls and ceiling. And through a tangled series of different outlet strips are all consolidated into one master plug going into a standard wall outlet. She points at it and asks me to unplug it. I do. She thanks me. I leave. I had a lot of wild experiences in 5 years working the job. This one was definitely top 5. Men of Reddit, what's the hardest thing to explain to women? I was at home. When my wife and her friends got home, they were all giving me funny looks and smirking. I asked what was going on. They at first refused to tell me. After a little while of prodding, one of them goes, "I heard all about your dick." And they all broke into laughter. I was like, "Oh yay, hopefully all good." And they laughed, and that was the end of it. After they left, I was like, "What the hell did you tell them?" And my wife responded by saying how she told her friends about our vigorous romps on our honeymoon, apparently in great detail. She was like, "Whatever, you probably tell your friends all about us when it's just the boys. I don't know about you guys, but the extent of what I ever say is usually a raised eyebrow and something like, 'Oh yeah booey.' I have never once described my wife's body to a single one of my friends and it blew her mind. Apparently girls talk in great detail about it, guys usually don't, and they assume we do, and we assume they don't. What is the most embarrassing way your body has betrayed you? I danced classical ballet for years when I was younger. One day when I was 12 we were doing a stretch where we were lying on our backs with our butts scooted to the wall and our legs stretched towards to the ceiling. We would let our legs fall into the splits letting gravity to assist us. So we were lying there, listening to quiet piano music, my legs wide open and the girl next to me was whispering jokes and making me giggle. I could feel the onslaught of explosive gas happening, but being young and stupid I was afraid to close my legs because I thought I'd get in trouble. So I ripped the loudest, most terrifying fart to ever exist. I think I blew a hole in my little pink leotard, I swear to God. The room was a huge wooden studio so the fart from hell was bouncing off the walls for like 15 minutes. All the little girls started screaming. I was screaming, the teacher was probably screaming. Still gives me nightmares. Tried to warn a girl at my gym. I tried to warn a girl at my gym that had period stains on the back of her shorts and she went on a rant, saying that she was working out and trying to make fun of me in front of everyone for being weird. So I announced the entire gym that she was staining the equipment with her period blood and that she needed to wash and clean herself immediately. I have never seen her since. I know it was probably really petty, and I got a lot of shit from people for doing that, but honestly, try being humble enough to listen before making a public scene. Effing drama queens.